Welcome back for another video. We've got an exciting one in store today. It's time for the double Gameweek 20 episode of the Experts. By far the craziest one of the season so far for hits, and there's lots of chips active. If you're new to the series, it consists of hundreds of participants, including a bunch of top all-time managers and content creators. Every week we reveal the Experts team before the deadline, plus we look at their transfer plans, captaincy and more. Between them they have 5 finishes in the top 100, 80 top 1k finishes and 439 top 10k finishes. So if you'd like to improve your rank and get help winning your mini leagues, make sure you're subscribing. Starting with a quick look at the top expert heading into Gameweek 20, which is David Vo, currently 5.5k after a red arrow from 50 points. However, at the time of recording he still has Kepa, Mount, Andreas and potentially Sterling to play. His total points currently at exactly 1,200 for the season. Like many of us, he was hit by the Mitrovic suspension. But the good news is we've got another double game week with more fixtures and more opportunities. Next up is the transfer activity among the experts. A record game week for transfers made this season. Just 6% are rolling the transfer into Game Week 21, 24% are making one transfer, exactly a half are making 2 transfers. Lots of hits active this week, with 16% making 3 transfers and 4% are making 4 or more. The takeaway here is that you shouldn't be afraid to take hits in a game week like this, even if that's not your usual managerial style. We've also collected a breakdown of the hits among the experts, and 39% are on a -4, 9% are on a -8, and 1% are on a -12. The upside is always bigger in a double game week, so a hit for a player like De Bruyne, Kane or Rashford is justifiable. So who are the experts spending all these transfers on? The player most transferred in is Kane, picked up by 29% of the experts that are making a transfer. His 16-pointer back in Game Week 19 means he trails Haaland by just 17 points now, with the two of them doubling this game week. In somewhat unfortunate timing, it's the North London derby as the first of Tottenham's double, which is always a heated fixture, and Kane cannot be booked in this one or he's suspended for the second game against Man City. De Bruyne is the next most popular transfer in by 14%, meanwhile 17% have sold Salah. De Bruyne has a double game week in 23 as well, so one way of looking at it is you're buying yourself 2 extra fixtures over the next 4 game weeks, assuming he starts them all anyway. Both Haaland and De Bruyne were benched in Man City's League Cup fixture against Southampton. Both came on in the second half but unable to have an impact, with Pep losing the first domestic quarter-final of his career. Stones was a notable absentee from the squad, reportedly with a minor injury, and he is being picked up by 12% of the experts, while Cancelo is the most sold player. Unfortunately, Cancelo had a poor game in the Cup as well, so it could be Lewis and Ake starting a fullback. 3% are picking up Lewis and 2% are picking up Ake. Man United do have a potential double game week 22. If Leeds progress to the 4th round by beating Cardiff, then the double game week 22 is dependent on both Man United and Leeds not drawing their FA Cup 4th round fixture, which will be played between game week 21 and 22. This hasn't been officially announced but strongly rumoured, so going back to the point about De Bruyne's 2 doubles, Rashford should be a priority transfer as well, not just given his form, but he could also buy you an extra 2 fixtures. Maximise your team's upside by buying a ticket to extra fixtures. Darwin and Mitrovic are among the most sold by the experts, to make ways for Kane and Martial for the double game weeks. Interestingly, 2% are selling Foden despite his double game week. He did play the full 90 in the League Cup. Perhaps this week he starts one and not in the other. Morris is the last name to mention, transferred in by 2%. He's been one of Man City's best players since the restart, returning in all games and just 7.5 mil. It's a pretty cheap risk to take on, but certainly a risk. He could be in the same boat as Foden, starting one and not the other. He's an exceptional dribbler, which Pep might see as what they need to break through Tottenham and Man United's defence, as opposed to pure pace. Onto the chip usage, and this is an important segment this week. 26%, just over a quarter of the experts, have pulled the trigger on the triple captain chip. It's worth mentioning that with Man City knocked out of the League Cup, that is one less potential double game week in the future. The 2 doubles we are certain of is Game Week 20 and Game Week 23. In terms of expected goals conceded by the opponents in each double, it actually favours Game Week 20 slightly. 20.04 expected goals conceded by Man United and Tottenham, and 18.69 expected goals conceded by Arsenal and Aston Villa. Haaland's expected to be nailed in both games, and they're spread out quite nicely, Saturday and Thursday, so the temptation to use it now is understandable. City can't afford to drop any more points, trailing Arsenal by 5 currently, so he looks good for minutes. That said, there will likely be other double game weeks for City with better fixtures, with teams like Fulham, West Ham and Brighton all potential opponents later. What is uncertain though is his minutes in those game weeks. It's also worth pointing out that a wildcard into a double game week might be a good strategy, or if you still get a bench boost you might want to use that in a double game week, so the opportunities to triple captain might be less than they seem. I came across a couple of graphics I wanted to share with you all. The first is from Chris Glover, and he split the season up into Gameweek pairs to show how Haaland would have fared in fixture pairs. We've had an odd number of game weeks, so he's chopped it two ways. The first takeaway here is that Haaland's floor is 8 points across 2 games. His ceiling has been 29 points on 2 occasions, with returns of 18, 23, 26, 29, 8, 14 and 19. The other takeaway is that Haaland has slowed down in recent game weeks, and this does align with what we've seen from City as of late, drawing with Everton, barely beating Chelsea 1-0 and losing 2-0 to Southampton. So that's a balanced look at Haaland as a triple captain. The other graphic I want to share is this one from Nazar, which is a measurement of player goals and assists per game versus opponent strength. He split it into 3 categories, which are top 6, mid-table and relegation. I've translated the graphic into English, and this graph shows something very interesting, which is that historically Haaland tends to shine in big games. Salah, Son, Kane, De Bruyne and Vardy are also included on here for comparison, who all historically perform better against relegation sides. Haaland's the only outlier here, actually performing 18% better against the top 6 teams. The point of this measurement is of course that Haaland plays 2 top 6 teams in Gameweek 20. Haaland's data is built from his appearances in Dortmund, which is worth noting. However, Nazar's pointed out that if he adds to the sample his matches at Man City, the graph looks even better. But I want to keep this a balanced segment, it's not to try and convince anyone to use the chip. There's plenty of cons as there are pros. There's every chance that if City double against Liverpool and Fulham later in the season, as an example, he scores higher then. Rewind this segment if you need one last think about which way to go. And if you have found the analysis and research in this video useful, please drop it a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future FPL content. On that note, we'll move on to the experts' captaincy, and unsurprisingly it's almost entirely Haaland, who has 91% of the vote. It's certainly a week of massive upside if you think he's not the best pick and you bet elsewhere, which does come in. Rashford is in second with 7% of the vote, and Bruno and De Bruyne 1%. To make the case for Rashford, he has 7 goals and 3 assists in 6 games in all comps since the restart. Man United look in form, while Man City's form is questionable. I'll read all your comments, so leave one below for your thoughts on both captaincy and the triple captain chip this week. Is there a genuine case for using the chip, or is it just fear of missing out taking over? Each game week we ask the experts to send in their tips for the game week ahead, which will come at the end, but first we're on to the experts team reveal, and this is the aggregated team of their highest owned players. With so many transfers made this week, a shake-up is to be expected, and the team is as follows. In goal it's Kepa, who's home to Palace. Chelsea also out of form, but the bookies actually have them as top of the clean sheet odds among the single game week teams. The back 3 is Shaw, Trippier and Stones. The midfield is De Bruyne, Martinelli, Almiron and Rashford vice-captain. The front 3 is Kane, Haaland captain and Martial. So for the first time this season, the experts have landed on the threemium. If you can get to De Bruyne, Haaland and Kane this week, it looks very strong this week, and all 3 doubling, and then City's double game week 23 a few weeks down the line. Cancelo was a mistake in hindsight, who has left the team. Stones comes in, who could also be a mistake as an injury doubt. On reflection, Ederson was the sensible pick as a nailed route into the quality City defence, who are top of the league for expected goals conceded over the season. I wanted to also give a quick shout out to Plan FPL. You might have noticed their name on the banners, as we use their website to build the experts team each week. It's a really good planner tool for FPL, so check them out at planfpl.com. The premium defenders have massively disappointed, so it's no surprise to see the team a consistent back 3. Cancelo's drop off as of late, James's injuries, and then there's James and Robertson's drop off in both clean sheets and attacking returns. However, a nice consequence of that is the threemium is possible and it looks optimal for Game Week 20. As always, our pool of experts have sent in their tips and thoughts for the game week ahead. Thanks as always to all our participants for making this valuable series possible. FPL Berg says, tempted to wait on the Haaland triple captain as it has to be played on Haaland, right? With the fixtures this week on the trickier side. But he can score in any game, and who knows if he'll be injured or more of a rotation risk in later games. Daniel Bedborough says, is this a make or break week? I don't think so. Trying to force square pegs into round holes is not a mistake I want to make with so much of the season left. I'll play simple this week, don't overthink it. Play long term, but a little risk for this week is always exciting. Joe says, with top teams doubling, a hit should pay itself off if invested in their assets. A hit, or maybe 2, would also be worth it if using this opportunity to jettison unreliable assets and bringing in consistent scorers. This is why Kane appeals this week and beyond, and why Darwin does not. Carl Smith agrees and says, hits during double game weeks can pay off, but you should only bring in players that you want long term. FPL Planner is not convinced by triple captaincy. He says, while it makes sense that many FPL managers are activating the triple captainship and Haaland this week, I think I'll hold it for double game week 23 or a future double game week with more favourable fixtures. Man United away and Tottenham home do not scream big hauls in my opinion. Amunpal disagrees and says the fixtures don't look optimal on paper, but I think this is the best time to triple captain Haaland based on the potential rotation and bench boost later in the season. Dan Cross says a tricky one to call at this stage, many different popular permutations. I think go with your gut and play your own game is the best advice as it stands. We all love football and we all know ball, particularly relevant with the triple captain chip. My gut is saying wait until game week 23, so I'm going to hold on to it for now. Jason Fleming says, hits will be flying left, right and centre this game week. Don't be too concerned if you're on a -8. Most engaged managers will be on a -4 minimum, and the moves you make can set you up until you wildcard around game week 28. Zofia says, Captain Kane for double game week 20 is Mitrovic part 2. And lastly, Adriel says, Mitrovic brother, you let us down. And that wraps up today's video. A ton of time goes into each video, so if you find them useful, please hit like to show appreciation. And subscribe so you don't miss out on future FPL content. See you soon for the next one.